Hey guys, so I'm here today to talk about the KVD Beauty rebrand. If you guys didn't see this week, they rebranded again for the second time since they got rid of Kat Von D from the brand. And I wanted to talk about the rebrand, why they haven't changed their name, and kind of the critique that I've seen online, and kind of discuss it from more of a marketing perspective. I got my degree in communications and multimedia. I got my postgraduate degree in public relations, and I currently work in digital marketing. So I thought maybe I'd have a unique perspective, or I kind of shed a different light on it than other people are, because I know there's a certain opinion online, but I kind of don't agree with it. So before I get into this video, subscribe to my channel. Up every Tuesday and Thursday. And I put on my best Kat Von D makeup look today. Sorry, KVD. This is the problem. So kind of to start this off, I feel like we have to go back to the beginning. Kat Von D was kind of like a reality star. She started off on the TV show Miami Ink, and then she got her own spinoff called LA Ink, and I believe it was 2007. And back then tattoo shows were super huge, and she was a pretty big deal. She had like a unique look. She was one of the only women on the show, so people really resonated with her like goth girl glam vibes. So then in 2008, she launched KVD Beauty with Sephora. Back then it was called Kat Von D. And listen, regardless of what you think about Kat, the makeup brand was a fucking bop. First of all, you have to think about what the makeup market was back in 2008. There were not a lot of edgy brands. First of all, Sephora was not what it is today. Back then, really the only other mainstream edgy brand at Sephora was Urban Decay, and I really wouldn't even equate Urban Decay and Kat Von D, because Urban Decay was definitely on the edgier side, but it was like bright edgy, whereas Kat Von D was like your glam, like goth glam vibes. I remember walking into Sephora back in the day, I don't know when this was, 10, 12 years ago, and seeing her eyeshadow palettes. They were named at the time after, I believe, composers. And I remember being like, wow, that's vibes. Like literally, if it wasn't for KVD Beauty, I might not be as into makeup as I am today, because I saw that palette and I loved it. And my husband bought it for me for Christmas. This is the Beethoven Palette. And as you can see, I mean, when you look at it today, it's a very basic palette. There's literally like 4 mattes and 4 shimmers in here. But like, this was edgy at the time. Like, we didn't have, first of all, we didn't have eyeshadow palettes back then, except for like Urban Decay had like their Vice palettes and stuff. But like this was edgy, and I still have this palette. And like, this is what got me into makeup. So like, I do have a slight bias towards the brand as a whole, but I will say, just like, I have always said that Kat's aesthetic is like my vibes. Like, I really resonate with her aesthetic. Her makeup she always comes out with was always gorgeous. The packaging she designed herself. So she definitely had her own aspect to it, and it was a unique brand at the time, and it had some freaking bops. Lolita lipstick, you couldn't get that shit anywhere. The Shade and Light contour palette, back when contouring was kind of just becoming famous, Kat Von D put out a contour palette. Her liquid lipsticks, I believe she was one of the first brands to put out liquid lipsticks, and her liquid lipstick formula honestly isn't as drying as some other liquid lipstick formulas. And then like, even the Lock-It foundation, like, I know that looking at it now, we're like, wow, that's basically paint. But back then, that foundation had a moment. I owned that foundation and I could not make it work for me. But I think a lot of oily skin girls could make it work for her. And also, Kat was inclusive for the pasty white girls. I'm not sure how deep her shade range went back then, but I remember lots of people saying that it was one of the few foundations that they could use for pasty skin, because she had very, very fair shades and she like spoke to the goth girl glam aesthetic. And again, Kat Von D was a moment. Even people who weren't goth glam loved her brand. So like, again, Lolita, the contour palette, like, she had bops. And then it started coming out that there were some controversies surrounding her, but it was all very micro. Like, there's first of all the rumors about her signing a poster with anti-Semitic stuff on it but the rumor was apparently started by Ami, who was jealous of her getting her own spin-off, and like that, I don't think that's ever been substantiated. So that was just kind of like one of those rumors that kind of kept coming up. And alone, I think people could ignore that. And I also have to say, the whole Jesse James thing, I think we need to stop making women accountable for their men's behavior. Yes, her dating someone who's like into Nazi paraphernalia, sus, but like, I don't see anybody trying to cancel Sandra Bullock. Wasn't she married to him? It's just like weird that like you're only trying to cancel like the edgy goth looking girl, but you're not trying to cancel your like stereotypical perfect movie star. Listen, I love Sandy B, but I'm just saying we got to keep the same energy. And if we're not going to hate Sandy B for Jesse James being sus, then we can't hate Kat for it. So like, I don't even like take that into account, because like, I don't think we can hold her accountable for that. Like, dating him, is that sus? But like, I mean, how many women have, or people have shitty dating histories? But there's also a lot of controversy surrounding her brand as a whole. She had, you know, a shade called Underage Red, which people thought was sus. I mean, the shade Lolita in general. There was also a shade called Selection, spelled with a K, which is a term used from the Holocaust. So that made people sus. There was also an Instagram post where someone was holding a concealer shade up to a cotton field, and I believe their caption was something about like not having to work as hard. So like, it'd be, again, it was like, I think it was like an influencer's post that they reshared. I would hope they didn't take that themselves, but it's just kind of like, it was like a snowball effect. Like it's one thing to have one small controversy, but once you start accumulating things, it becomes a pattern. And I think there were other things in there. So people were a little sus of KVD. And then she came out as an anti-vaxxer, and that's really what kind of put everyone over the top. She got pregnant, and she posted on Instagram that she would not be vaccinating her child, and people were like, what the fuck? And since then, she's come out as, I'm pretty sure, an anti-masker. She called them, I saw her do a post where she called them like face diapers. So it's pretty clear Kat Von D's not a great person. This kind of leads back to a whole conversation we could have about building brands around people. So like, which is why I think there's brands like Fenty. While it's Rihanna's brand, it's called Fenty, which I believe is her real last name, but like, people don't associate that with Rihanna. So even if she stepped away, people would still be able to buy the brand without, like, if there was some major controversy and we all canceled Rihanna, it would never happen. And she had to step away from the brand, people would still be able to buy the brand and not associate it with her. But then there's brands like Jeffree Star Cosmetics, which is having issues now because he's been canceled. Or, you know, all of the other influencer brands, like some influencers like Samantha Ravenel just came out with a brand, and she basically was like, I don't want this to be associated with my name. I want it to be like its own standalone brand. And I think that's probably a better idea than naming it after yourself. So the brand was kind of left in the lurch. Oh, I forgot to mention the Kat Von D tattoo liner. Iconic. So the brand was kind of at a point where I think it was trying to just see what happened. And obviously their sales were tanking. There's no other reason that this brand would do what they did. But in January of 2020, KVD Beauty renamed itself to KVD. And as opposed to it's standing for Kat Von D, and basically announced that Kat was bought out of the company, that she would no longer be making money from the company, and that they were its own brand. Also keep in mind that Kat Von D, the brand, was owned by Kendo Beauty, which is who does all the brands under the Sephora label. Fenty, Sephora, other brands like that. And so, and I will say, like, I appreciate that they got rid of Kat. I think it was the right call for them. But I also think that the brand didn't take the time to think things through. They were just like, listen, their brand must have been hemorrhaging money. They were like, listen, we just need to announce to people that Kat Von D is out so that people will start buying our fucking products again. Because honestly, a lot of people just didn't want to support Kat. Again, people thought the brand was fire. There were products people wanted to try, but people were like, we don't want to support Kat. So they wanted to just get the message out there and get it out there quickly. And I think because of that, they didn't take a step back and think about what the brand would be going forward without Kat. They were kind of hoping that just getting rid of cat and circumventing cat would make things better, but it didn't. So they announced that they were gonna keep the packaging the same, that they wouldn't be discontinuing any products, and that they were free of cat, and people started saying, okay, then what does KVD stand for? Because this is the issue. People know that KVD stands for Kat Von D, and they really dropped the ball on this. They basically responded, and like, I don't know who their marketing team is or who was in charge of this fucking response, but the fact that they didn't have a prepared response for this, and if this was a prepared response, someone should be fired for it because it was fucking awful. But the response was, we changed our name to KVD Vegan Beauty, and the KVD stands for we believe in kindness, vegan beauty, and discovery, and then in brackets plus doing good. So that means your brand is kindness, vegan beauty, and discovery, and doing good vegan beauty. That's your brand name. It's a lot. It's a lot going on there. It's a lot going on there. They didn't really think it through at all. They didn't change the logo. They didn't really change anything. They just like took the Kat Von D out of the name and hoped everything would be fine. And people were not impressed, and people kept being like, you need to do something else. You need to rename the brand. What the fuck? And now, before we get into the new rebrand, I want to talk about what a rebrand is, because I think a lot of people are confused about this aspect. A rebrand, by definition, is a change of corporate image. So I think a lot of people think that a rebrand is the same as a rename, but it generally doesn't go that way. In, I would say, 90% of cases, brands will never change their name fully. So what a lot of brands will do is they will change their name to be just a shortened version of their name or some sort of version of the name they already had, because name recognition is so critical in our society because the market is oversaturated in every aspect of the world. Branding is important. So for instance, Starbucks used to be Starbucks Coffee Corporation or something, or Starbucks Coffee Company. Now they're just Starbucks. Kentucky Fried Chicken shortened themselves to just KFC. Restoration Hardware changed their name to just RH. Like, most brands that are going to rename themselves are just going to shorten their name. Like Dunkin' Donuts is now just Dunkin' because they sell more than donuts. So they're not rebranding. Like, I think a lot of people just misunderstand what a rebrand is, and they're like, and I also don't think people understand the the magnitude at which a rename would harm a brand. Again, brand recognition is everything. You know, there have been studies shown that like brand recognition on ballots is important. Like if like people whose name starts with A can get more votes on ballots because people will just pick the first thing they see, or they'll pick a name that sticks out to them. Probably how Donald Trump got up in there. So there's like that one aspect of it where you're rebranding your name, but only slightly. And then there's rebranding where it's more your image you're rebranding. So you keep the name, but you rebrand how society sees you or you're portrayed. So for instance, McDonald's used to get a lot of slack for being really unhealthy back when like Super Size Me came out. And so they started introducing healthier menu items. They have apple slices and Happy Meals now. They have books and Happy Meals now instead of toys. They have salads and stuff. And they have like their McCafe section. So like they have rebranded themselves, like they're still McDonald's, but they've rebranded themselves to be not seen as so fast foody and gross. Target used to be seen as just like another Walmart, a super cheap, crappy company, but they rebranded themselves to be more like the stylish version of Walmart. Like the societal views of Walmart versus Target are very clear to anybody. We call it Target for a reason. Or even look at how Champion has been rebranded. If you were a kid in the 90s, you know that Champion was sold at Walmart and you got made fun of wearing those sweaters in like elementary school and high school. And now they've got influencers out here hawking their brand, they've been able to jack up their prices, and now they're considered like a luxury brand or like a semi-luxury brand, which is fucking wild to me because like Loungewear came back in and they rebranded their image, but the name is still the same. So those are kind of the two main aspects of rebranding. So when you look at now what Kat Von D or KVD, see, this is the problem. This is the problem. People keep calling it Kat Von D. When you look at what KVD Beauty did now, it was a much more comprehensive rebrand. They changed the logo. They changed the mission statement of the brand, and they finally figured out what the fuck KVD stands for. That's not Kat Von D. KVD stands for Cara, Veritas, and Decora, which are Latin for value, truth, and beauty, which makes sense because I believe Kat Von D is Latina, so like they have Latin roots in their brand. They've done other things with Latin roots. And in that, they released kind of a new manifesto. So it says, born in an iconic tattoo studio, rooted in a dream of unrestrained beauty with a nonconformist and fearless spirit, we started a revolution with tattoo-inspired makeup and limitless creativity. We continue this legacy. Tattoos are the boldest form of artistic self-expression. This deeply personal ink shows the world what's in your heart. A tattoo is the result of something felt so passionately that it actually becomes a part of you. Here's what's a part of us. We celebrate the individual, we give a fuck about the world, we create high pigment, high performance makeup tools. We stand for Cara, Veritas, Decora, value, truth, beauty. And so I will say, from an outside perspective, I think this rebrand was great. I think the issue is that it's kind of like falling on the back of their other rebrand, and it's like, okay, you rebranded twice within a year. What's up with that? But at the same time, I think when you look at it, it looks like they as a brand actually kind of did some self-reflection, thought about what they as a brand stood for outside of Kat, and kind of took those principles and created a new manifesto, created a new logo. They have a new head of tattoo artistry they announced on their Instagram. So she's a tattoo artist who's also into beauty, who's going to help them kind of keep the tattoo roots, which I thought was really great because I do think that they did kind of, you know, like they said, they started in a tattoo studio. That's what Kat's background was. That's kind of the gothic art that came from it. And I thought the mission statement was honestly not bad. So the issue comes now where people are saying it's not enough, you need to change your fucking name. Like, we know it stands for Kat Von D, which like from like a consumer perspective, I can understand, but I also think that a lot of the times what happens is we in the makeup community think that everyone thinks like us. We think that everyone is part of the makeup community. And while the makeup community has made makeup more popular, I think that we need to realize that I think the general consumers outweigh us. You also have to think about the people who are involved in the makeup community online who watch casually. Even they aren't into the same level as some people in the makeup community who are like invested in brands and who know all the drama and know all the details and know all the backstory of what everything's going on. I think that's a smaller group. And then there are the people who don't go online, the general consumers, the girls who just wear their like staple makeup every single day, who walk into Sephora, pick up an eyeliner or pick up whatever, and they have their go-tos and they know the brand KVD as a brand. And KVD as a brand doesn't want to lose that name recognition, which honestly, I don't blame them. And from the first rebrand, when people were complaining about them not rebranding or changing the name, I didn't blame them. As from a marketing perspective, in order to change your name, it needs to be an absolute necessity. So I think what's happening here is KVD, again, they took the time, they did a really great, what I think is a great rebrand. I like the mission, the values, the manifesto, the way it's going. You know, they found something else for KVD to stand for, which is important. And, you know, they have a direction they're going to go towards. So it'll be interesting to see how this reflects what they do going forward. And I think people need to understand that people have a short attention span. So while right now we know that KVD Beauty used to stand for Kat Von D, there are new consumers every single day, and we will soon become the minority. Kat Von D, it's only been a year since Kat Von D was ousted from the company, so I think that KVD Beauty is waiting to see what happens. You know, the rebranding is a huge, huge step. Think about all of the old packaging that they probably still have that has Kat's name on it that they're going to have to sell in order to make a new brand, in order to make a new packaging, new logo, kind of work cohesively. So I think they're gonna basically, they've been trying to sell off all the old stock, I'm sure, and they're probably gonna come up with new packaging with the new logo and stuff on it. So my thoughts are they're going to try to go with this and see how it works for the next year or so. If people continue to not buy their products, I mean, I also think part of the problem was that some of their products were like sus this year. Like, They didn't really put out anything like super great. They had like that weird recyclable eyeshadow palette, and they have a new cream, my cats are brawling. They have a new cream product or a cream foundation, but like other than that, I don't really know what they put out this year. So I'm hoping that like they can put out some good products, because I do think that people who don't want to support Kat understand that Kat is gone. People who are oblivious will still recognize the name. And those of us that thought their first rebrand was trash can hopefully appreciate that they did take the time and think about this. They have a new tattoo girl who's working for them, tattoo artist, I don't want to call her tattoo girl, new tattoo artist who's working with them on the tattoo side of things. They have new makeup artists they've hired to help them kind of with the rebrand. And I'm interested to see where they go with this. I completely understand why they're not rebranding, and I completely understand people still saying Kat Von D Beauty. I still call it Kat Von D all the time when I pick up my makeup or when I'm talking about the makeup, but I think that that will just take time. You know, you just get used to the new name. It'll take time, and people will slowly forget about Kat and move on with their lives, and people will forget and it will become the norm. That's kind of what happens. Like, that's just how we as a society work. Whenever anything is changed, everyone complains about it at the beginning, and then you get used to it. Remember when every time Facebook would do a change, like a update of their layout, everyone will bitch and complain, and then 2 weeks later you'd be totally used to it. I think this will take a little bit longer to get used to, but again, I totally understand why they did what they did. I think this new rebrand is a much better step forward than their last one, and I'm interested to see what they do, and I understand why they didn't change their name. So that's kind of where I am. I just wanted to look at that from kind of a rebranding perspective on what I thought. I hope you guys found this video interesting. Let me know down below what you think. Are you hesitant to purchase still because you know the KVD stands for Kat Von D, or can you kind of understand what I said and, like, you know, the perspective of Kat is gone now, so as long as she's not getting the money from it, who the fuck cares? Or do you think like, no, they need to change the name, or like I'm not going to purchase from them again? I'd be interested to hear both sides. Like, I understand why people think the name needs to be changed because we all know it stands for Kat Von D, but is there a other reason besides that? Because like, while we know what it was named for originally, I think we can understand that things have changed. She has been removed and she's not making money from it. And like, listen, the goth girls need something, okay? The only other brand we have is like Melt Cosmetics, and like, I like Melt. They have beautiful products, but like, they're not, I just feel like they're not, like, I've always liked the KVD stuff better. I'm sorry. I wore the Satan Sinner palette today on my eyes, and like, gorgeous, wearing Hawkwind, I think, on my lips. Got my KVD contour palette on, just living my life. Listen, her products were bomb. She was trash, but she made some good makeup. Her and Jeffree Star belong together. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this video. If there are any other topics you guys want me to cover, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!